Well, hey there, everyone. I'm going to show you how to make a spiral twist round blanket in owl eye stitch with no purls. It was created by Frankie Brown. She did it in garter stitch with needles, and she has given me permission to convert it and to do videos and sell it and all kinds of things. So in my Ravelry shop, I have version 1 of this spiral twist blanket, and it's there for purchase. And if you purchase that one, I have a group where I give support, and it has videos for that particular one. And I also will have this access to this video in there too that I have here. And this one is my version 2. It's just done a little bit different at your center and your joining piece. The rounds are done similar, but just that middle piece is done differently, although it looks pretty much the same if you're looking at it. But it's all done in one piece. The only drawback is you have to be a lot more careful because of the way that you do the short rows, because you can get holes in your work if you don't keep it consistently tight. On my version 1, you don't get holes because of the different way that I did the round circle. I did it in a way that's very tight with short corners, but we're going to do this one, and it's a little more, well, actually a lot more true to Frankie Brown's construction. Okay, so the loom I'm using is a 9.75 inches 5/8 inch loom. It's from Cindy Wood Looms. I really like their looms. And the first thing I'm going to do is just do a slip knot. So there's all kinds of ways to do slip knots. I just go like this and pull the working yarn through. Just a very simple, easy way. And then we put it on peg 1, although you can do any cast on you want. So I'm going to show you how to do this cast on, but any cast on will be fine. Okay, so we'll take the hook, and we're just going to put it into the top of peg 1 under the loop of yarn. Be a little harder to see on the black peg, but we're just going from the top inside the loop, pulling it out, and then pulling the working yarn through it to make a loop. And I'm just going to tighten it from the back, and then I can put down my hook because we're just going to go around peg 2, put the working yarn through, and snug it up. And that's all there is to it. The crochet chain cast on. I think it's my favorite cast on. Normally easy to do if you don't drop the loop, and you can make the loop bigger or smaller. And then we just put that over like that, and then knit it over. And then we're going to go right into doing the blanket. Oh, the yarn I'm using is Barcelona in the color Amethyst. If I didn't already say it, I don't remember saying it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go over these two pegs, peg 1 and 2 here, and just knit them over. And then we're going to go over peg 2 a second time. There we go. And then on peg 3, we're just going to wrap and turn. So this is going to be, sorry, went out of the view here. Just going to adjust the camera a little bit. There we go. Keep this just a little bit higher. There we go. There we go. That should be better. Okay, so then we come over peg 3, and we just wrap from the front to the back, nice and snug. Come back to peg 2 and just knit it over. And then we're on peg 2, and we wrap peg 2 and 1 again. Okay, so that's our first short row. And so we went to peg 2 and we did an extra peg where we did the wrap and turn. So we have 2 pieces of yarn on there. Now we're going to do, we did 2 pegs, now we're going to do 4. So we're going to go to peg 4 and then do a short row on peg 5. Okay, so to come back in owl eye, we go over peg 1 and 2, just like this. Then we go over peg 2 and 3, and we take both of the loops and put them over, and then I give it a little pull. We want to keep it pretty snug on that peg, and knit them over. Okay, so now we have our 4 pegs, and we come back over this one, and then we just wrap and turn. So we're just coming in front, pulling that, coming over, and then knitting this one over, and then knitting it over again in the next peg, just like this. Now there's a little gear when you're on the computer, bottom right. You can slow down the video if you need to. On an app, it'll be in a different place, but there's always a way to slow down the video. And that can make it easier if you're having a hard time keeping up. Right under my marker there. Okay, so, oh, just if I didn't go over this, 10 pegs. It's 10 stitch. I'm doing it on 10 pegs. Okay, so now we come back over peg 1 and 2, 2 and 3, and we keep going. And the next one we're going to do is 6 pegs. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then wrap and turn on peg 7. And come back. And again, after we do the wrap and turn, we pull it, we're pulling it nice and tight, and then just knitting over, coming back. And this will be our first wedge we're working on. So this is going to be done all in wedges to do the inner circle. Okay. Now we're going to go all the way to peg 8 with doing the wrap and turn on peg 9. So for those that want to write down the pattern, we went to peg 2, an extra one for short row, then peg 4, an extra one for short row, peg 6, and then peg 8. Okay, so we're going to go over, lift both of the loops of yarn over. Always give it, make it a little bit tight. And there we are, gone to peg 8. And then we're going to do a short row here on peg 9 and come back, knit it over, and go all the way back. And to complete this wedge now, we're just going to go to peg 4. We're going to do our short row on peg 4. So we do our 3 pegs and we come to peg 4 and we do the wrap and turn here. And we come back. And that is our first wedge. So if we look at it, this is all we see here. But that's our first wedge. And it will be going around in a circular way. Okay, so then we do the next wedge, and we're going to need, depending on your yarn and your loom, anywhere from 8 to about 12 wedges. You want them to be long enough that you can come around from one end to the other to make the complete circle. So I'm guessing on this gauge, the 5/8 inch gauge with this thinner bulky, that I might need 9 or 10. We will see. Pretty sure that I used 9 or 10 with the last one I made. Okay, so here's the working yarn, and we're going to start doing our second wedge. So I go over peg 1 and 2, and we take the yarn and we do a short row on peg 3. Okay, now we're going to go to peg 4 and then do a short row. Take both loops of yarn over, tighten it. I take both of these loops over too, tighten it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and the wrap and turn on peg 5. And then back we come. Now if you wanted to do this blanket and garter stitch, you could. Original is in garter stitch, so yeah, of course you can. Okay, so now we're going to go down to peg 6, do our short corner on peg 7. Or short row, I mean, not corner. No corners. And then we just do our short row here, peg 7, and a little bit too tight there. That's how I can tell if I'm tight enough. I should be able to get that over, but not have it too tight. And then we just come back. And next, we're going to do 8 pegs and do our short row on peg 9 again. So it's just always the same until we get our inner circle. Okay, now the second time you come to do this, it has the 2 short rows on it. So I'm going to knit them over and give it a pull and go over it. So that's the only difference now on the wedges you do is you're already going to have the 2 yarns here. And if you were to just wrap a turn, you'd have a lot here. So I'm just going to do the 1, knit it over, oops, and then come back in a short row like that. So it's almost like doing a German short row, except we knit it, and then, yeah, it is like a German short row right there. But that's the way I figured out to do it, so we wouldn't have that great big clump going all the way down the blanket of having too many yarn on it. And then we knit all the way back. Okay, so that's the only difference. And then we just keep doing the same thing until we have enough wedges, anywhere from 8 to 12. Okay, so then after I do that, to finish off the wedge, we're going to go to peg 4. We're going to short row on peg 4. And then we can look at it. And that's 2 wedges complete. Okay, so now we can look at it. This is what it's looking like now. This is where it's starting to go around. And this is your edge. And as you get further along, got loose there, as you're going to get further along, you'll start to see it start to really curve. Okay, so we're just going to work for a while and then catch up when we have more of these done. So I will see you in a few. Okay, now I've done my 3rd wedge, and you can start to see how it is coming around circular. Okay, so we'll just keep knitting, doing wedge after wedge until we get it long enough that we're going to be able to connect it into a complete circle. So we'll catch up in a little while, and we'll see where we are. But I'll show you this on both sides in a close-up. So here's how it looks. It's curving along. And here's what your other side looks like. And it looks nice too. Okay, so we will catch up in a little bit. Okay, so here we are. I've done a few more rows, and there we go. We've got a nice round piece that we're going to attach. Now, you're going to wonder, how many panels do I have to do? Well, I had to do 10. And how did I know 10 would work? Okay, here's how I know. So if it had been 4, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 would be the fold line right there. And if you look at this, that's not half a circle. That is more like a wedge. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is right here, and there we go, half a circle. Roughly, you can see it's half a circle. So that's 5 folded over this, so 10 is going to do it. 10 will be the whole circle. So I did 10. And there you go. So that's how you're going to know if you've done the right amount of wedges. And it is going to be somewhat stretchy, so you just have to be close to the circle. Okay, that's how it looks. Looks like that We were already looking. This is the reverse side. It looks good too, and this is our good side. Okay, so now what we're going to do, because we want to do this on the loom all in one step without taking everything off, we're going to have to bind off down to one peg. Now we would have to cut the yarn if we did the stretchy bind off, which you could do. You could do this, do it long enough to cut it off, and then you could attach another piece and keep going. Or we can do the basic bind off. So if you can do a loose basic bind off, the basic bind off will work, and we'll be able to do that because you're just going to be attaching it, so you're not going to see it, and you don't need a whole lot of stretch right where you're going to attach it, because once you attach it, it's not going to stretch anyway. So the basic bind off will work fine. So I'm going to do the basic bind off, but if you have trouble doing a loose basic bind off, by all means do a very stretchy bind off. I'll have one, I have one on my channel I call the extra stretchy bind off, but you can use any super stretchy or any really extra stretchy you find out there, and you can do that, and then you can just add a piece of yarn to keep going. So that's what you can do. So what I'm going to do, no, sorry, had an interruption. So we're going to bind off. So we're going to use the basic bind off so that we can end up just on the one peg and still have our yarn and not have to add any yarn. Okay, so now in order to do that, we need to cast off so that we end up over here on the outside edge, because we're going to be working on the outside edge to go around. So you don't want to bind it off so you end up on the inside edge. You want to be on the outside edge. So how we're going to do that is we're going to have to knit back down to here so that when we bind it off, we end up on the outside edge. So I'm just going to do a row of owl eye down, because that's the stitch we've been using, to get back down to there. And then we're finally going to knit this last peg. There we go. Okay. So to begin, we're just going to do an E-wrap over peg 1, and then we're going to pick it up nice and loose. So it's like this, nice loose loop. Put it on here so that you can see it's quite loose, so loose it's going to fall right off the peg. See that? Really, really loose. And then we're just going to hold that so it doesn't come off the peg and knit over. Okay, and then we're going to come back and E-wrap it nice and loose. Falls over loose, and we have another loose loop like this. We're going to put over on this peg. Knit it over, and then do another E-wrap and knit that over. And pick it up. And so we're nice and loose. Okay, now we're coming over to the next one. Knit it over, E-wrap it, knit it over, bring it over to the next loop, knit it over, E-wrap it, knit it over, and the whole time, really, really loose loop here. I've got, see, really nice big long loose loop over here, over, loose loop, knit it over, E-wrap it. Okay, now we're going to take a look at it, and as you can see, it's nice and loose. Okay, so take this loose loop like this, put it on, knit it over, E-wrap it, over, over, E-wrap it, knit it over, put on last peg, and knit it over. Okay, so here we are. We're cast off onto the one peg. Okay, so now we're down to one stitch, and all we're going to do, keeping this facing towards us, is we're going to put this side on top of this stitch. So we're looking for the first outside loop, and the loops we're going to be picking up. So I'm going to stretch this out so you can see it. Open up the loops. So you're going to see a hole. Get this real close so you can see it. Okay, here we go. You're going to see a hole, some work, a hole right here, some work, a hole here, some work, another hole here. Just open them all up, and above the hole are 2 loops of yarn. So you can see 2 loops of yarn here. That's what's above each one of these holes, is 2 loops of yarn, and these are the 2 loops we're going to be picking up, all the ones that are above the holes. 2 loops of yarn. So there's 2 loops of yarn, some work, 2 loops of yarn. We're looking at it from the outside, some work, 2 loops of yarn. So we're looking for the first 2 loops here of yarn, two threads of yarn, and the first hole right there. And we're going to take that and put it over the peg here. So what we're doing is we're attaching the 2 ends, and this is the piece you're going to sew up later of your circle. Okay? So we're just going to pull that tight and have our working yarn facing us, the good side, and that's the wrong side. Okay? So now we're just going to knit them both over together. And so now that we've got the 2 joined together, what we're going to do is we're just going to add a stitch. So to add the stitch, we're just going to knit on the top. We're going to take the yarn on the bottom and just pull a loop through and put it on the next peg, not twisting it. It's twisting on me. Just flipping it on there. Okay. There we go. So it's on there nice and tight. And then we're just going to come over and we're going to take the next, we'll come up here close. So this is the one we've got on where we joined it to the other side right there. The next is right here. Here's the next hole with the 2 loops on it right next to it. And we're going to put that on the second peg here. The stitch we just added. Now we're going to hold it tight again just to make sure it's tight. We're going to go over that, and so we've got the 2 loops and the piece of yarn, so 3 strands here, and just knit them over. And there we go. And then we're just going to knit back to the first peg. And there. Okay. Then we're going to knit back over first peg, the second peg, and now we're going to add a stitch. So we're going to take this, put it up here, put the working yarn under, pull up a loop, and put it on here, and just tighten. And then we're just going to go in to the next place to join. So we see that this is joined here. Next one is right here, and we're going to put it on right here. Okay, so we're joining as we go, and then we're just going to come over and knit them over, all of them over. There we go, pulling it. Want to keep this fairly tight here while we're doing this, and then just knit it, come back, knit this one, and now we're got enough pegs to do owl eye, so we'll knit this one again, go over and back here. Okay, now we're going to come and add another stitch. So we come back over here, 2 stitches on here, and stitch here. We're going to add a stitch, over to here, tighten it up, and come over to the next one right here. And as you can see here, we look here, it's attached here, so we want to put it on the next one right there. Okay, and then we knit over, all the strands, and we come back. And knitting twice now over the pegs that we can owl eye. There we go. Okay, and now we've got 4 pegs with yarn on them, and we want to go back to where we are on 10 pegs. So we're going to add in 1 more peg. We owl eye over, and then we're going to add yarn. So we put this yarn over, come in from the bottom, pull it up, and put it on the peg. There we go, and just tighten it. And we go in the next loop and put it on. We always, when we put it on, we always see we have 2 strands of yarn right here. And we put the working yarn over and knit it all over. And then we come back. Starting here, we start to do owl eye. Okay, now here's where we're going to work our first short row. So we're going to keep increasing to get it to 10, but we're going to do our first short row. So how we're going to do that is we'll be doing 1 short row, 1 long row, 1 short row, 1 long row for a whole round till we get all the way around and we get back to this attaching section that we have here. We can put a stitch marker in it later, and then we'll know where we start to change our formula for each round. And we have to change our formula on each round, because if we didn't, we would curl like crazy, because we have to compensate for the arc of the circle. So we're going to do that by doing going longer as we go around, with doing short rows combined with long rows. So this is going to be our first short row. So how we're going to do that, we're just going to come back, so we won't be increasing, we'll still be at 5 pegs. We're just going to come back here and then do our wrap and turn right here, and back. Okay, so always do our wrap and turn on the second last peg. Okay, now we're going to go back and do an increase and pick up a stitch. So we owl eye back. Here we're going to be picking up both of these stitches, and we're just going to make sure that that's pretty tight. Come over here, and we're going to be making a new stitch. And pulling it tight, and then we're going to come around and put the next one, and you can see this is connected here, so we're going to take this one and put it on right here, and then just knit it over and come back. And then we start doing owl eye on this peg, and we just owl eye back. We're going to be a little tight on this one, but that's okay. And back. Okay, now we've got 6 pegs, and now we're going to do another short row. So our increase is going to be a lot more gradual as we're coming along here. So we knit these over using owl eye. We go down, and on the second last peg right here, we're going to do a short row. So we pull that tight, come back into owl eye all the way to the end. Okay, now we're going to do another increase. So we come back, knit it over, doing the owl eye, knitting over 2 there, and then we're going to do our increase. Just putting it over, pulling it tight, and then bringing up the next loop, put our next 2 loops here that go over it, the next hole here, We just lay it on. There's the 2 loops right there. And we come over and we knit them both over. There. Got them. Now we're getting close. Right here we'll be at our 10 stitches again. Then we knit that over and come back, and here we start doing the owl eye again. Okay, we come back, and this is going to be our short row, so we won't be increasing. Okay, and right here we're going to do our short row. So I just pull this and knit this over and back, doing the owl eye stitch. And then our next row will be an increase again. Okay, so you can see, here we are. We're joining along here, and we're just gradually coming up to our 10 stitches to go around. Well, looks like kind of a little wedge here. And then later, when we're done, or when you have enough room, when it's long enough where you have enough room, you're just going to come in using whatever method that you like and just stitch this together along here to form your circle. Just stitch that together. And that's your inner circle right there. To be stitched together just like that. Okay, so I'm going to catch up to you when we get up to 10 pegs, and you're just going to keep increasing. Short row, the peg before the end, increase, add another stitch, just the same as you've seen me doing here, all the way until we get up to 10 stitches. So I'll meet you up here at 10 stitches. I just don't want the video to get too long. It's already pretty long. And I end up getting a lot of interruptions and then have to edit it back. Okay, so we'll see you in a few. Okay, so I have increased all the way till I'm at 10 pegs and then come back. So my next row is my short row. So I'm coming up to do the short row. So that's what we'll be doing now, is we'll always be picking up on this one peg, and we'll always be coming back and doing our short row with our short row on the 9th peg here. And we'll just keep picking up as we go around, one after the other, and always be one short row, then one long row where we pick up a stitch, one short row, one long row where we pick up a stitch, until we get all the way back to where we started doing this increase here. Now what you can do is you can put a stitch marker here if you're not going to see it, because when you get back here and then you start coming along here, the formula changes. So instead of being one long row to one short row, it's going to be 2 long rows, 1 short row. So 2 long rows where you attach, and then 1 short row, 2 long rows where you attach and 1 short row. So if you can remember that, on your next round, your formula will be 2 long to 1 short. On the round after that, it'll be 3 long to 1 short. And what you're doing is you're compensating for arc, or the curve of the circle. So if you look at a circle, like right here, I have another round blanket that I made, a spiral twist blanket that I made in a different stitch. So if you look at from here to here, and you come down straight from the center, this is getting longer here. So the arc is a little tighter, more curved here. And as you get to the circle, you're going to keep coming out like this as the blanket gets bigger. So what we're doing is we're compensating for that as we go, so it lays flat like this blanket and doesn't curl. We want it to lay flat. We don't want it to have bumps and curls and waves all over and have to block it and everything else. We want it to be as flat as it can be. So that's what we're doing. We're compensating for the curve. As for this blanket, it's in my Ravelry store. So it is the hook and twist spiral blanket that's in the Ravelry store. This one is more challenging than the one I'm showing you, or my version 1 of the owl eye. It's a more challenging one, so it's not one I would start with. Okay, I would start with this, and this is definitely not beginners. These spiral blankets are definitely not beginners. They're intermediates. You want to have done a rectangular 10 stitch before you attempt a round one. The rectangular ones are a lot easier. At least in my opinion they are, and I think everyone would say that. So anyway, we're on our way back, and we're just going to do a short row. So I'm just going to demonstrate how it's going to be as you go around. So we come down, and this round, our formula is 1 short row to 1 long row. We come down, we do the short row, and go up. Now I always know where I am on this formula 1, 2, so I don't mark it because it's pretty easy to see. You got the 2 stitches there. You've just done your short row. But when I start getting to 2 longs to 1 short and then 3 longs to 1 short, I'm just going to leave this here. I like to mark it. So what I do is along this edge, I put stitch markers in. So if it's 2 longs and then 1 short, I'll put a stitch marker there. So I know I do a short row, and then I do my 2 longs where I pick up, and then I'll put a stitch marker there. When I see that, I know I do a short row, and then I go there, and that's the first of my long rows, and I do the 2. So I mark it, and that helps me know, and I can just mark it all the way around and then start a new marking when I hit the spot where I change the pattern or change the formula again. So you can do that. Whatever helps, whichever way helps you to do it. There's no right or wrong way. That's just what I do. It helps me a lot because I get interrupted a lot these days. So I try to think of what I can do, so if I come back, I know where I was. I have something to look at to tell me where I was. Okay, now we're going to come back, and I can see I did a short row here because I've got these 2 strands here, and we're going to come and pick up a stitch. Now, I can pick up the stitch when I get down there, or we can pick up the stitch right now and just set it on there. So if we come down here and look, we can see that this is picking up this stitch. It's right here in this loop. We pull the strands, we can see it's coming into this loop. So it's this loop we pick up, the next one, and we just put it over onto this peg. And so now we have the 2 loops here and that loop there. And each time we pick up, we're going to be picking up on this peg and making sure we put the right loop up there on the peg. Make sure we don't put the same loop on there we already had on there, because we'll start to bunch up. So always look, give it a tug if you have to, and make sure that the loop you're pulling up isn't the loop that was already attached to that peg there. Okay, so I just set that on there so it's there when we get there. We come around. Now if you wanted to have flatter ridges on your 10 stitch, you could do the tamson join, and if you look at a lot of my blankets, I use the tamson join for it. It's a flatter join, but on these I like it to have a little bit more of a ridge. It really actually, I think, really accentuates the blanket to have a ridge. And if you want to use the other side, so if you look at the other side here, you have no ridge, so on the other side you're not going to have a ridge. So you can do what you like, but I'm just doing it with a big ridge. So if you wanted to do the flatter ridge, I'll show you what you would do. All you would do is knit this over that first and then knit over what's left on here, and that would give you a flatter style. But I'm going to knit everything over so it's all in one thing here. So we have a nice big ridge. And then we come back. And knit like this. And so we just keep doing the same thing as we go around, all the way around, and then we change the formula. So I will catch up to you later when we've gone around a lot of times and we're ready to actually change the formula. So I'll come all the way around and catch up to you when it's time to change the formula. Okay, and we'll see how we're looking, but for right now, as you can see, we've got this little wedge coming in, and on this blanket, which is a different style, this was done in a different pattern, my version 1. Here you are, just coming up here, joining on the side of the inner part here. Okay. And so we'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so here we are now with the blanket. So here's the circle that we did, and I joined it here. And we had started there, and here's where the piece we increased was going up here, and then it was all in here, all increased, and I came around, and so I've joined it here. So here's our inner circle. It's harder to see because of the colors, but there it comes here, and there's our piece coming up here. And so I put a stitch marker right in the center of this piece where we increased, so that when I got here, I started doing the next part of the formula. So now I'm doing 2 long rows to every short row. And I do that all the way around, and when I get to my marker, which I put right in the middle of where we increased back to 10 stitches, so whenever I get there, I start the next formula, which will be 3 longs to every short. So every time we go around, we increase 1 long, and that takes in the arc. But you're going to want to give it just a little stretch as you go around, because of course it's getting bigger as you do that. and that will just help it to lay flat and show you where you're going to pick up your stitches on the side. And then you just keep going around and around until you get a nice big blanket. And that's all there is to it. When you bind off, when you're done, whenever you figure this blanket is big enough, there are two ways you can end it. One is you just abruptly cast off and use a stretchy cast off, and then you'll just come to an abrupt end, or you can taper down. And how you taper down is every 2 or 3 stitches you do a decrease, and you just keep decreasing until you come down to a fine point at the side. And there's plenty of videos of how to decrease. I eventually will put a video of how to decrease. But there's plenty of videos out there to show you how to decrease if you want to do a more tapered end when you finish it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you have a lot of fun making your round blanket. And they are really fun, and I really do like this Barcelona yarn. It really is coming out pretty. And so that's all you really need to know to be able to do your own blanket. So until next time, bye.